wider at the shoulder and the same in the gullet, see?
Okay.
And if the angle's not correct, they just can't gait.
Okay. And that would probably be defeating the whole purpose of riding a gaited horse then.
Well, it'd be like you and I going on, on a hiking trip and putting a wine bottle in a backpack and making you carry it with the neck of the bottle poking your shoulder. It's just not going to work long.
Okay, you're right. Now, what about mules? What are the differences there? How do you build a saddle for a mule?
Well, a mule can either take after the donkey's back, which is like an upside down V, or it can take after the mare. And sometimes it's a good mix of both. So if it's the same what we just did in the video. If it's a V in the back on the loin, then the tree has to be the same shape. And then if it's more the horse's back, it has to be flatter on the loin. So
okay. So you, the people oftentimes send pictures to you then, so you can
they do.
see
I require
exactly.
photos and measurements, because one's not good with the other. And if the information's not good, well, the information that you send us it has to be correct. And if it's not, usually I'll catch it. So if you'll take the time and do the photos and measurements, then that just makes my job a whole lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the common problems that folks would have with their saddles. And one that you mentioned was sliding around, maybe sliding forward.
Okay.
What can we do about that?
Well, generally, if a horse is built downhill, which means the hip is higher than the wither, that's going to make the saddle want to travel forward. And it often will grind into the horse's wither. And then when you traverse down a hill, sometimes that saddle will want to slip right up and over the horse's neck. So it's very important to get your measurements correct and your angles correct, and then you might add a crupper.
Okay.
And crupper is a device that you hook on to the back of your saddle, goes around the horse's or the mule's tail, and keeps the saddle in place. The crupper should be like the breast collar when you put it on. If you're riding your horse with a breast collar that's flopping around, well, you might as well just have left it at home. It becomes a decoration. So the breast collar needs to be as snug as a man keeps his pants up with a belt. So if the saddle wants to travel travel rearward, look at your horse. If his shoulder, the back edge of the scapula, is in line with the elbow, generally you don't have a problem with your fitting. If your horse chafes or gets a gall, generally it's because his elbow is behind his scapula and the girth wants to run on a diagonal. And then see the girth gets up into the elbow. So use center fire rigging. We have a product called our Super Cinch that prevents galling, and it's like a mule packer's girth. It's an X, and because it's an X, it gets the assembly away from the elbow.
Okay.
If the saddle wants to move rearward, use a collar, and before you start riding, Lizzie, tighten the collar to keep the saddle where you placed it. And here's another one. If you're riding a horse and if the saddle wants to go to the right all the time, no matter what you're doing, you're shimming that saddle back, and no matter what you do, it still shims to the right, get up on a 5-gallon bucket behind that critter and look at his shoulder. If it's shimming to the right, I bet you any money that the left shoulder will be a little bit bigger than the right, shimming the saddle to the right.
Okay.
And if that's the case, before you ever start, just for an experiment, before you start buying expensive shims or pads, just fold a washcloth in half and then quarter it and stuff it up between your saddle and horse. And if that fixes the problem, you'll know it's not a saddle problem at all. It's a horse conformation problem.
Okay. Well, there's lots of different tricks of the trade then that you seem to
There
be
is.
awfully familiar with. And Debra welcomes people to give her a phone call and find out, different things about saddle fit and how important it is. So where can folks find you and maybe have you help them fit a saddle?
Well, there's lots of different ways to contact me. One's the toll-free number, and then you can go through the website at crestridgesaddlery.com. We're at just about every major horse expo throughout the nation. I travel about 160 days a year.
Wow.
And sometimes people just see our truck and they come right to the truck, even at truck stops. We were at a KOA campsite in Cripple Creek, Colorado a couple weeks ago, and the owner had us do fittings. She just asked Sarah, "Is Debra with you?" And doggone, we sure just did a saddle fitting for her. So wherever you see us, stop us. We generally have our equipment with us.
Okay. And at any of these expos, if you happen to have your horse, then that would be a heck of a good time to get it fit.
We always arrive at the expos 2 or 3 days ahead of time, and we take appointments so that people that aren't even participating in the expos can come and make an appointment with us, and we'll meet you there around the ground somewhere, and we'll do a saddle fitting for you. There's no charge as long as I don't have to travel.
Okay, well that sounds perfect, and we sure appreciate you being a guest today. I'm sure our viewers have learned a lot about your saddles and saddle fitting in general.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure we'll see you back here on Horse Talk Live and continue to learn about how important saddle fit is with Crest Ridge Saddlery. Everybody at home, we appreciate you tuning in. Until next time, we'll see you around the barn. Thanks for watching Horse Talk Live.
That was great.